If you're watching this at 3 a.m. with a newborn who wakes every hour, I'm here to tell you something important. Your baby is completely normal. As a newborn care specialist, I've helped hundreds of families understand what's really happening with their newborn sleep. Today, I'm exposing why popular advice about newborn sleep is all wrong, why adding cereal to bottles is dangerous, and why trying to sleep train too early can backfire.
Until the end and learn the exact routines that work with, not against your baby's natural rhythms.
Let me start with something I heard from a mom just yesterday. Her mother in law told her that her 6-week-old should be able to sleep 6-hour stretches by now and suggested adding a little rice cereal to the bedtime bottle. This kind of advice isn't just wrong, it's potentially harmful. And here's why. Your newborn's brain is literally designed to wake frequently. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. And today I'm going to show you how to work with this biological reality instead of fighting it. It's all about riding the wave, not turning the tide. Let's talk about what's really happening in your baby's brain. First, newborn sleep cycles are just 60 minutes long, not the 90 minutes that we have as adults. That means they naturally resurface every hour. This isn't them being difficult. It's their brain doing exactly what it should. During these wake-ups, babies are regulating their temperature. They're checking their environment is safe. And yes, ensuring that their next meal is coming. This is a survival-based programming that's been perfected over tens of thousands of years. We can't override it, but we can work with it. So here are some common mistakes I see parents make with newborn sleep. Number one, trying to stretch their feeds to get longer sleep. This actually leads to overtired babies who sleep worse. Number two, keeping baby awake, hoping they'll sleep longer. But the opposite happens. When you mess with your baby's natural rhythms, they will wake more frequently. And number three, starting formal sleep training too early. This creates stress for everyone and doesn't respect your baby's biological needs. Don't do it. Any professional sleep consultant worth their salt will not sleep train a baby under 4 months old or at least 12 pounds. So instead, here's what works with your newborn's natural rhythms. Number one, wake windows. If you don't know what they are, you need to learn. Let me show you exactly how long your newborn should be awake. Spoiler alert, it's much shorter than you think. Now, this graph I'm going to show is very broad guide. It is not the law of Moses, okay? So we're going to dive deep into wake windows because this is where most parents get tripped up. Your newborn's ability to handle awake time changes weekly in the early months. So I'm going to give you an even deeper insight into what your days may look like. Let's start with this, a guide by age level. So from 0 to 4 weeks, and a lot happens in that time period, okay? In the mornings, their wake time is going to be maybe 45 minutes. 40 to 45 minutes, I like to say, up until the evening hours. After that, they get more sensitive, and they may only be awake for 30 to 40 minutes. The key here is to watch their cues. You need to learn their cues and be sensitive to them. That is the most important part of this entire lesson, if I could say. So, okay, we're going to go to 4 to 8 weeks. All right. So this is between 1 month and 2 months old. Again, mornings, 45 minutes, maybe up to 60 minutes. So 45 to 60 minutes up until even through the midday. And then evenings, again, take it down to maybe 45 minutes of awake time. Remember, awake time includes the time it takes you to feed the baby. All right, next we're going to go to 8 to 12 weeks. We're going to stretch it out here. Could go up to as much as 90 minutes. But again, watch the baby's cues. Some babies are very, very sensitive. They need to go back to sleep. That's it. They cannot go past 60 minutes. Other babies can go 90 minutes, and it's fine. So somewhere in that time frame, 60 to 90 minutes. 75 minutes is okay too. Just start looking for those cues. And again, in the evening, we're going to take it down to shorter wakes because they're getting a little bit more sensitive, and we're going to start the wind down time. So here's what makes it tricky. I mentioned before, the windows start the moment your baby opens their eyes and you start a feed. So if your feed takes 45 minutes, it's probably going to be time to change the diaper and put them back to sleep. Okay. And again, this doesn't last forever. I know we want to be with our babies and we want them to be, you know, we want to watch them and play with them. And we're anxious when they're first born to get to know them. But trust me, they will be awake long enough for you to play with them soon enough. And it's more important to get these early signs detected and taken care of. So early tired signs to watch for. Number one, decreased activity. This is a little tricky in tiny little newborns because they don't do much, right? But you can, if you look at them, you'll see that when they're alert, they are looking around and they will make eye contact with you. So when that starts to decrease and they're just kind of zoning out, their eyebrows or their ears can get a little pink. So look for that. They just kind of slow down. They may be rubbing their eyes a little bit, looking slightly away. If you see these signs, start your sleep routine immediately. Do not wait. Don't wait for the yawns and don't wait for the tired cries, the cranky cries. It's too late by then. So, the most common mistake I would say is thinking that they don't seem tired. But here's the thing, if you're trying to interact with them and keep them interested and making eye contact, talking to them and singing to them, they're not going to seem tired because they're trying so hard to pay attention to you. If you just let them be for a moment and take a look at what they're doing, let them show you what they need. Trust the window, not your baby's ability to fight sleep because they can fight it. An overtired newborn takes a lot longer to fall asleep and will wake more frequently. So, number two is the feed, play, sleep sort of rhythm. It's not a strict schedule, there's no time clock that we're going to be looking at. Okay, it's just a flexible pattern that helps your baby feel secure and they get used to it, they learn it very quickly. So, let's kind of break this down into what the rhythm looks like hourly for your baby. Number one, they wake up and you're going to start with a feed. Keep the baby fully awake during feeds during the day if possible. If that means taking them down to just their diaper, that's probably a good idea if that's what it takes to keep them awake. At night, it's a little different. They can basically sleep while they're feeding at night if they're breastfeeding. So I say during the day because this is when we want them to have their very alert times. Feed from both breasts or a full feed for whatever their age is. So age appropriate feed. It could be 60 milliliters, 2 ounces generally for a newborn, but just kind of figure that out as you go along. Watch their signs. Always burp really, really well. Make sure they're burped in the middle of a feed and at the end of the feed. And that should take about 30 minutes. A lot of times it takes longer in the beginning because they're very tired and droopy. This is why I say it's a really good idea to take them right down to their diaper before you feed them. Really wake them up and get them interested and know that this is what we're doing now. Then the second phase here is the playtime. So in the early weeks, you might do just a 5-minute diaper change and maybe 5 minutes of interaction, tummy time, or just a position change, a little walk around, that sort of thing. And they're right back to sleep. Now, later at about 6 to 12 weeks, we're going to bump that time, that activity time, up to maybe 10 minutes. So we're going to do tummy time, which sometimes they really hate, but there's some interesting ways you can get tummy time in. Some interaction, sensory activity, the black and white cards, the mirror, always talking and singing to your baby, so good for their language development right from the beginning. And again, this duration is going to vary by whatever their wake window is at that time. And then after the playtime, we're going to start a sleep routine. Now, again, it's very, very short when they're only up for 45 to 60 minutes, right? So pay attention to that. We're going to start when the wake window is about 10 minutes from closing, we're going to start the routine. So it's only about 10 minutes, maybe 15, but basically a quick diaper check, make sure they're swaddled nicely and cozy. We're going to put them down in a somewhat dark room, maybe with some white noise. There's a lot of controversy about, this, put the baby to sleep with, noise of the house, and get them to learn that there's noise. And that's okay, but like, we all need to sleep in a sort of dark, quiet room, right? So it's okay to teach babies that sleep time means it's dark and it's quiet. Doesn't mean you can't vacuum the rugs, upstairs or something, but um, make sure they know that there's a difference between when they're awake and when they're asleep. So a darkened room, some white noise, not necessarily swaddled. A sleep sack is fine. I like to use swaddling just as a tool to calm them. So if they're really, really fussy, swaddle them for a little bit. If it's a really like intense swaddle where their arms are like strapped down next to them and they can't move them, I do not go for that. It's not good for them. They need the moral reflex, that's the startle reflex, to be fully, they need to be able to fully startle if that's what their brain's telling them to do. So I don't really like the full like sleep in the swaddle all night long kind of thing. A sleep sack is a little bit better because you're keeping them warm, but you're not keeping them from moving in natural ways. The biggest thing that I always say, my big secret here, is a brief song or a brief phrase that becomes their sleep cue before bedtime. So for me, it was one verse, and I mean one verse of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But I only sang it at times when the babies were going to sleep. This quickly became a cue that they were going to sleep, and they knew it. Their whole body would relax as soon as I would start that little song. So it's important to keep that as a sort of permanent sleep cue, and it will be a tool in your toolbox you will never regret having. So, key points here: never skip the feeding first part, keep the playtime age appropriate and somewhat calm. Start the sleep routine before the tired signs start, and adjust the timing based on your baby's cues. Okay, some common problems and solutions for you. Problem number one, the baby falls asleep while they're feeding. I mentioned this before. If that's really happening a lot, strip the baby down to their diaper right away when they wake up. They may not like it very much, but that's going to wake them up. You can use a little wet washcloth. You can tickle their feet. Their feet are very sensitive, so tickling their feet can help get them awake, and also changing positions of the feet. Problem number two, babies fighting the sleep routine. So if that happens, usually it means you've gone a little bit too far and they're fighting it because they're confused and they're overtired. So start the next time earlier, decrease stimulation earlier in the wake window, and check your timing. The third problem that comes up a lot is short naps. Gosh, parents hate that. Like, I just put them down and it was like 20 minutes. Why can't they sleep longer? So again, this is part of a bigger issue. It's part of the whole picture, which is the wake windows throughout the day. You want to really check on those. Make sure you're putting baby down in that dark room, doing the routine. And you can do some motion or contact naps once or twice a day. That's okay. Babies need closeness. They need to be held. They need to feel mom, their primary caregiver, dad, grandma. They need to feel you, be on your chest. And it's okay if that's how they get their best nap of the day. That's really okay. More importantly is that they are sleeping. Remember, this is a rhythm, a pattern, not a schedule, meaning not, looking at the clock and every day they eat at 7, at 10, at 1. It's just, let's just not go there. Just a rhythm. So some days will flow perfectly and others will not, and that's okay. So I want to talk about sleep prompts. One of the most powerful tools you can use to establish in the newborn period is a sleep. So these aren't just about getting your baby to sleep right now. They're building blocks that will make all future sleep transitions easier. Think of sleep prompts like programming your baby's brain. So here's exactly how to establish sleep prompts. Number one, environment. Let's set up non-negotiable sleep cues for every sleep, nap time and bedtime. Number one, the darkness level. Think cave dark. Okay, even for naps, as dark as you can get it. White noise is a good idea. You got to make sure your decibel level is not too high for babies. You don't want white noise that's right next to them. I don't go for the white noise that's within the bassinet. It's too close. We don't know how these baby ears are developing. Don't take that risk. It should be about the sound of a shower running in the room. So the white noise on the other side of the room is okay. You do want it to kind of drown out any background noise. That is the purpose, is that they kind of hone in on that noise instead of people talking, downstairs or something. So play with that a little bit. Next is the temperature. This is really important. Temperature varies a lot by different people's homes. And I see it all the time. I understand, but we want to really make sure that the temperature in the baby's room is between 68 and 72 Fahrenheit. 70 degrees is just perfect. You can overheat a baby very quickly. So I always think like err on the side of too cold. 68, even if the room is 67 or 66 and you've got the baby bundled, okay, that's safer than overheating the baby. Babies cannot regulate their own heat and they can overheat very easily. And next is the sleep space. So the same space for all sleep whenever possible. I mentioned, yes, you can contact nap. That's always going to be a good thing. But something that you can have that's portable. So a travel white noise machine and a portable blackout blinds, some consistency would be good. But the sleep space, whenever possible, if that can be the same, until you transition them, from the bassinet to the crib. Of course, that'll be a transition time. Okay, next is the nap routine. That's about 5 to 7 minutes. Fresh diaper, sleep sack, your brief saying like it's time for sleep or night night or you're a sweet baby or just something little sweet that you say that has something to do with it's time to go to sleep. Okay, and then that little same song snippet, 15 to 20 seconds only. And then the bedtime routine at night would be maybe you're going to add maybe a warm bath or a wipe down, a little massage, maybe with some baby lotion, something like that. Diaper, sleep sack, same little saying and that same brief song. You could maybe add a little short book, but I would not do that for quite a few months, to be honest. I know we want to read to our babies, but they're just not ready for it yet. And it only prolongs, it's going to keep them engaged and more active. And there will be time for that later. Trust me. Once they learn how to say again, they'll be saying again and you'll have other things to deal with. But for now, when they're newborns, keep it short and sweet. Then there are the physical prompts. So these are powerful because they work anywhere. So the same holding position, if you can do that while you're singing that special snippet song that I mentioned, mine was Twinkle Twinkle, they just know that that's the I'm going to sleep hold. A specific swaying pattern you might develop, or a particular way that you pat their back, a consistent shushing pattern. These, you can almost do a shushing in a pattern of a song. It's wonderful. Keep these very simple, but something that that you can teach other caregivers that you do. Keep them simple and keep them repeatable. Wonderful things to take with you, to be portable and as they grow. All right, now this is a big deal. The transition technique here. Here is where most parents go wrong. They use too many prompts. Okay? I gave you a lot of ideas, I gave you a lot of things. Pick 3 or 4 main prompts and use them every single time in the same order every time. So don't do everything that I told you, okay? Like I said, the story, the book, the song, the padding, the shushing, not everything. Just pick 3 or 4 things, keep it under, 10 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes as they get older, but not yet, not when they're newborns. And again, do them in the same order every time so that they know that the last thing you do every time before you lay them down is going to be that last thing. It will be like magic, I promise you. So you want to when you are traveling and you want to make this all portable for babies, create a sort of sleep toolbox that travels with you. So, as I mentioned before, a mini white noise machine, portable blackout blinds, or I mean, really, you can just use blankets over the curtain rods, right? Like something that is just going to darken the room. A travel sleep sack. After they're much older, you can add things like a lovey. Like when you're taking the pacifier away and giving them something to replace that with that's better for them, that's the time when you can maybe add in a lovey. I'm going to talk about pacifiers next week, so make sure you subscribe and tune in for that. Big issue, pacifiers. You could even do a recorded version of your shushing or your sleep song if you're not going to be with the baby. That's always a great idea. Common mistakes to avoid. So, switching up the routine when things get hard, when the baby's sick, or when you're out and you've been out at a party and you come home and really just want to drop them in bed because you know they need to sleep. Don't skip anything. Do the routine. Keep it. You can make it shorter. You can do it faster, but do every step of the routine. Do not switch it up when they're sick or when you've had a really tough day or you've been out a lot, running around and things are kind of screwed up. Another mistake is adding more steps, hoping that it will help, singing that song a few more times, maybe adding a story, talking a little bit more about the day. If you make the routine too long, you are going to keep your baby engaged instead of giving them the cue that it's time to go to sleep. Another thing is skipping cues for some naps, but not for others. Again, keep them the same. If you have to shorten them for whatever reason, that's fine, but keep them the same. Maybe start singing that song a little bit before you get to the bedroom instead of waiting till you get to the bedroom. Whatever you can to shorten it is okay, but don't skip anything. And then the other mistake too is using different routines with different caregivers. Try to stick to something that's going to be set in stone and all the caregivers know exactly what it looks like, what it feels like, and your baby will know what to expect. Now, here's why these sleep cues are so powerful, because in the future, you are going to have teething issues. You're going to have runny noses. You're going to have sleep regressions, which happen quite a few times, starting at around 4 months. So during the 4-month regression, these sleep cues are going to provide a familiarity, and they're going to have just such an effect on the baby that they know they're feeling safe and secure and they can let themselves go to sleep. For travel, they create a sleep association anywhere. During illnesses, they signal that sleep, despite the discomfort, is going to be their best bet. For transitions like starting daycare or having daycare provider come in while mom goes back to work, these sleep cues provide consistency, and even during toddlerhood, they become part of limit setting, which is going to be really important. So, a few troubleshooting things here. When cues are not working, here's what I want you to check. First of all, timing. Are you starting before they're tired, before they're overtired? It's all about the timing. So, check your wake windows and look at those old sleepy cues and overtired cues. Make sure you're getting the timing right. Number 2, consistency. Are you using them? Are you using them every single time? Is everyone else using the same sleep cues? And next is duration. Is this just too long? Babies cannot hold that much attention. So keep the duration of the sleep routine short and sweet, just like your baby. And then next is just environment. Is the environment of sleep really conducive? Again, the temperature, the light, the sound, all of those things. Babies need all that to be very consistent, and that's what helps them. Now, adjusting as your baby grows, your cues are going to evolve, right? From 0 to 3 months, they're going to need some full physical support. From 3 to 6 months, they're going to need more verbal cues and a shortened routine at 9 to 12 months. They're going to need a lot more independence, and they're going to start to learn that, I know the drill. I know what I'm doing here. Right? That's the 9 to 12-month-old thing. So they're a little bit more independent, and the cues can go a little bit faster, like we know what we're doing here. Now your routine may extend because they'll be able to be awake longer and understand more, and you'll be able to read a story that's a little bit longer. But just be aware that there is going to be a progression as your baby grows. So it's not going to be forever. The way you start out is going to be very, very short, and that's going to extend. So I just want you to remember, your newborn's frequent wake-ups are protecting them. They are helping their brain develop. They're not supposed to sleep too long, and they're not supposed to sleep too deeply. They really should be sleeping in a very light sleep for most of their time, most of their sleep cycle. So when you see them moving around a lot, making little noises, startling, and then settling back down, that's okay. That is normal infant sleep. That is what it looks like. So your baby is sleeping. Those times when they're really, really still and they're very, very in deep sleep, that's usually only about 15 minutes, and that's okay. You don't want them to be in a deep sleep for a really long time. You haven't done anything wrong. Your baby's not broken. They're exactly where they should be. Drop a comment below with your baby's age and typical wake windows, and I'll help you optimize their sleep patterns. Next week, I'm going to talk about pacifiers, when it helps, when it hurts, and the prime time to toss them. So hit subscribe and don't miss it. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell